Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Catalina Gillies.
And I'm Ryan Bonazzo. Ontario Provincial Police have begun their reinvestigation of the 2015 death of Stacey DeBungee.
The OPP's involvement was requested by Ontario's Ministry of the Attorney General back in June after an independent review found City Police had failed to properly investigate. OPP officers gathered environmental evidence like river temperature and depth Tuesday at the site where DeBungee's body was found exactly 6 years ago. Detective Inspector Sean Glassford says Provincial Police will dedicate whatever time and resources it takes to ensure a thorough investigation.
6 years later, there is, there are difficulties to that. Obviously, people's memories fade and whatnot. But we're going to be reinvestigating. We're going to be talking to people. We've set up a tip line that we want people to call in with any tips that they may have. Each one will be followed up, and slow and meticulous. There are people in the community that have knowledge, I have no doubt, and we'd like to speak with them. 6 years later, I think the community deserves to know what happened to Stacey, and as well as his family.
The OPP will have access to files from the original investigation by Thunder Bay Police. Ontario's independent police watchdog found in 2018 that the local police force had ignored important leads and may have been influenced by anti-Indigenous racism. 3 investigating officers face disciplinary hearings over that process next year. Glassford says the OPP plans to re-interview witnesses from that investigation and speak with new ones. Anyone with information is urged to contact a special tip line at 1-833-533-8477. Information can also be submitted to Crime Stoppers for those who wish to remain anonymous.
Meanwhile, the Thunder Bay Police Service has identified the victim of Sunday evening's homicide, which is the city's 4th murder of the year. 36-year-old Stephen Perry Burns died in hospital after sustaining apparent stab wounds during an incident on the 200 block of Park Avenue. A post-mortem was scheduled to take place today. Police have now released the public portion of the crime scene. 25-year-old Khalid Ali Mohammed of Toronto was taken into custody shortly after the incident on Sunday. He first tried to give officers a fake name at the time of the arrest. Mohammed has been charged with first-degree murder, obstructing a peace officer, and failure to comply with a release order. He'll be back in court on November 8th.
The Ontario government is providing more than $3.3 million to help promote year-round sports tourism in the city of Thunder Bay. The funding will support 5 local projects and is designed to create jobs and grow the economy in the Northwest. Alex Flood has the details.
Representatives from 5 local sports facilities gathered at Fort William Gardens Tuesday to hear confirmation they would all receive funding through the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation. The $3.3 million will go towards installation and restoration efforts at the Thunder Bay Community Tennis Centre, Mount Baldy Ski Hill, Black Sheep Mountain Bike Club, Fort William Gardens, and Lappy Ski Centre. Greg Rickford, Minister of Northern Development, says while this is great news for upcoming sporting events, it's even better news for the longevity of recreational activities in Thunder Bay.
I like to think about this as investing in communities, investing in people. Today is a sports day thematically, but as was discussed, this isn't just money, for example, for Thunder Bay to host the Scotties tournament. It's about legacy infrastructure that's going to be here for the benefit of other sporting venues that are going to be here at the barn on back of us here.
Mayor Bill Mauro noted that Fort William Gardens could not host the upcoming Scotties Tournament of Hearts without this project, and he applauds the efforts made by the sporting community to enhance the athletics experience across the city.
So all of this is very good, as you mentioned, sports tourism for the city of Thunder Bay. So a big day. We're really happy to see some of the investments that the city has made being leveraged and getting support from other levels of government.
The Gardens received just over $550,000 to support preparations to host the 2022 Scotties Tournament of Hearts. The National Women's Curling Championship will be held in January and February and will receive required upgrades to the aging facility. Alex Flood, TBT News.
Thunder Bay City Council won't pursue the sale of the waterfront and Victoriaville parkades. Councillors voted strongly in favor of keeping the two structures on Monday evening, with timing relative to downtown revitalization the main reason for their decision. The mayor also gave an update on efforts to craft a response protocol on homeless encampments. Corey Nordstrom has the details.
Both the Victoriaville and waterfront parkades will remain property of the City of Thunder Bay for the time being, sealed by a 9-3 council vote. Selling just as the city looks to revitalize both downtowns didn't make sense to most councillors.
To sell something at this point is probably, without all the information, probably wouldn't be a smart thing to do.
The push by Councillor Aldo Roberto to sell was predicated on the parkades losing around $200,000 a year, and what he says is an abundance of unused parking spaces in the downtowns.
If we don't have parking right downtown, what happens? People have to walk a little further. Oh my God, people have to walk a little further. What a horrible thing.
Parkades are predominantly used by people that are working in the area. And if you didn't have that parking supply for those workers, well, where would they go? People would be filling the parking spots of the shoppers, which would, be the exact opposite of what we want to see.
Administration believes there is public benefit to owning the structures and had recommended councillors vote to keep the parkades.
That is true. The parkades do not make money. However, they are contributing to the community.
In other business, Mayor Bill Mauro updated the community on the development of a formal protocol to address encampments like the one seen at the County Fair Mall. The mayor repeated that homelessness is not the city's responsibility, though he is pushing the provincial government for more support.
I made a phone call last week to Minister Rickford. I ensured that he was aware of this proposal, looking for him to please, if he can, support this proposal around the cabinet table, because this is the answer fundamentally, or certainly at least part of the answer.
Council also unanimously approved just under $1.3 million in funding for a design plan on the demolition of the Victoriaville Mall and Victoria Avenue renewal. The design phase will likely take a year's time, with the project's completion slated for 2025. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
A change to Synergy North's repayment of its $26 million debt to the City of Thunder Bay has been finalized by Council and will see a $10 million payment coming late in 2023. Council voted in favor of switching to a rate of return model, which city staffers had recommended. The change is expected to save residential property owners $13 per year, balanced by a rate increase of $9 to $10. Synergy North CEO Tim Wilson referenced this graph when assuring councillors rates would remain in roughly the same spot relative to other hydro utilities, where Synergy currently sits as the 5th cheapest.
Probably still keeps us at around the bottom quartile. We're either at the top of the bottom quartile or we're at the bottom of the 50th. We're just kind of still about a quarter of the way along that that graph that we presented of the 60-odd utilities that are in that graph.
The decision will still need approval from the Ontario Energy Board.
There's one new COVID-19 case being reported by the Thunder Bay District Health Unit today. It comes from the Thunder Bay area and is a close contact infection. The number of active cases remains at 2, as one case has also been resolved since yesterday. There's also one new case coming from the Northwestern Health Unit. It's in the Rainy River District. The NWHU now has 5 active cases, one more than on Monday.
Premier Doug Ford is defending the comments he made yesterday about immigrants coming to the province, saying he has been pro-immigration since day one. Ford caused a firestorm yesterday when he said people coming to his province expecting to, quote, collect the dole need to go somewhere else. Sean Leathong has more.
A heated exchange in the legislature this morning.
Will the Premier apologize for his reckless comments?
The opposition accusing the Premier of making hurtful remarks towards new Canadians. Doug Ford instead refusing, saying he has always been pro-immigration.
Mr. Speaker, all you have to do is come to a Ford Fest. You'll see the support from people around the world that come there. And guess what, Mr. Speaker? I'll tell you how Ford Nation was created. They came to this country. They couldn't get a hold of any NDP Liberal leaders, but they got a hold of the Mayor of Toronto. They got a hold of the Premier. We show up to their door.
While in Windsor, Essex yesterday, Ford was asked about the labor shortage and was calling for more immigration to Ontario when he said,
I just have one criteria. You come here like every other new Canadian has come here, you work your tail off. If you think you're coming to collect the dole and sit around, not going to happen.
And it is not in the desire to welcome new people to Ontario, but in those two images presented by Premier Ford that has some critics saying they push forward a hurtful and unrealistic image of new Canadians.
There are tens of thousands of recent immigrants here in this province, including lots of young boys and girls, who literally heard the Premier of Ontario suggest or imply that they may not be prepared to work hard, their moms and dads might not be working hard, and that's just not the reality.
And people deserve to hear that from their Premier. They deserved an apology, and instead they got an invitation to Ford Fest.
Outside Queen's Park, Ford's comments have many saying, at the very least, some clarification is in order.
Well, the way you put it, I think, frankly, is a little bit shocking, a little bit rough around the edges for sure.
For him not to apologize is he's not taking in consideration what his comment could have, implied.
I think if you're in the wrong, you should apologize, and I think he's in the wrong.
For now, that hasn't happened.
Members of the Thunder Bay Police Services Board met today to finalize a request for more than $58 million commitment from the city as it prepares its 2022 capital budget. That eye-popping total includes a proposed $56 million new police station and other security and technology upgrades. Danielle Bain reports.
A pair of revisions to the Police Services Board's 2022 capital budget headlined the list of discussion points at Tuesday's monthly meeting. That included costs to upgrade to the next generation 911 system, which will allow users to text for emergency response. $225,000 had been put aside already, but an additional $41,000 in funding was requested to cover some technological requirements. Mayor Bill Mauro noted it's been difficult to get funding assistance for Next Gen in Thunder Bay and across the province. But Police Chief Sylvie Hoth says more money is needed to enable the sending of digital data to 911 call centers.
Now that we've had through this year the opportunity to finally be able to cost effectively with what the project will entail, and now having to do the backup site as well, the project itself is requiring the $266,000 ask this year in the capital budget.
Also included in the board's discussion was addressing a missing item from the capital budget, a $107,000 price tag for security modifications at the Balmoral Street headquarters. The motion to implement the changes passed in September, but not in time for inclusion in next year's draft police budget, which still needs City Council approval. Police Services Board Secretary John Hannam agreed that it would be in the board's best interest for the $107,000 fence to be included in the capital budget submission.
From our perspective, certainly we can. It may cause some upset with city finance that we were revising it, but certainly, through the city manager's office, the chief has made them aware that these funds are being sought after. So I would suggest the way forward is for the chief to send a memorandum to city finance saying that we're amending our capital budget request to include this amount.
The biggest item in the board's requested capital budget is approval to go ahead with a proposed $56 million new police station with the city footing costs. That project was not discussed Tuesday. The board's updated police services budget, including the newly added capital costs and a separate operating budget that also tops $50 million, will head to City Council for approval during budget deliberations in the new year. Danielle Bain, TBT News.
It was an eventful trip to school today for a few kids in Nebing. They walked away uninjured from a collision between their bus and a dump truck this morning. This picture was posted to Facebook earlier today. Student Transportation Services of Thunder Bay says the bus, which services students of Valley Centric Public School and Westgate Collegiate, was in the process of making a left turn on Highway 608 around 7:45 this morning when the truck tried to pass on the left at the same time. There were only 3 children on board the bus at the time, and none of them were hurt. According to the OPP, the driver of the dump truck will be charged.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse.